What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction, and I am very excited to dive right into this one. Why Poland is divided. First off, I never knew anything about Poland being divided, so can somebody inform me what's going on? Well, I guess the video is about to inform me why Poland is divided. But before we dive in, I just want to give you guys a big thank you for helping me reach how much subscribers this channel has now. About 650, a little bit more probably at this time. But we're on that journey to 1,000. I need you guys, if you enjoyed the video, to smash that subscribe button. And let's dive right in.
This is a map of the most recent Polish elections. You can clearly see where the conservative government has been defeated by progressive opposition. Wait, no, this is actually a map of all the houses that have bathrooms. This is a map of the most recent Polish...
What you mean all the houses that have bathrooms? Huh?
Oh, houses built before 1945. This is embarrassing. Wait. This is the map of the most recent election. Why do all these maps look the same?
That's a good question.
This is Poland in 1635. Yes. And together with Lithuania, they have a very big country. In modern times, you would have Ukraine here and Belarus. And for some reason, Sweden is hanging out in Estonia, I hope. And by the time of Napoleon, it didn't exist anymore. Poland was unlucky because it was surrounded by some state that decided to become superpowers. Russia, the Habsburg Empire, and the Prussian Empire.
Yes.
They saw Poland as this sort of playground, and they just decided to gobble it all up. It would be 123 years before the Poles would see their country again.
That's crazy. That's so wild. That's legit so wild.
When they got occupied, people were making the first hot air balloons. And by the time Poland resurged, they were making televisions. And not long after that, the podcast was invented. I listen to podcasts a lot, like all the time. When cooking, showering, or listening to other podcasts. But sometimes my favorite podcast can't keep up with my listening speed, which means I am alone with the existential dread of my existence. To deal with this anxiety, I have recently been using Blinkist.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, is this a sponsor? I will see how long it is and see if we can't go past the sponsor. Alright, let's get back to it.
For sponsoring this video, check the link below to subscribe. Hey, it's 1922 and it's after the First World War and Poland is back on the map. Doesn't really look like the Poland we know, but you know, something. It does, however, confuse Stalin and Hitler so much that they quickly go back to bringing Poland into its occupied state, like so. And after they introduce their ideas of minimalist architecture in Warsaw and other places, finally we get Poland. Now, this is the Poland we do know. Let's take a moment to reflect on the position of Poland over the years. It's moved a lot. After the Second World War, they moved to the west. So they lost all this land to the Soviets and they gained all this land that had been in the hands of Germany for, well, centuries.
It's like watching this video is cool because like I've watched videos about Poland's history and I've learned more and more about Poland's history and how they had to move west and they got Germany's land and I think Russia or the Soviets took some of that land, and so seeing Poland change over time, I've got to kind of see that change through many different videos, and that's why it's so cool, like, to react to the country's history and everything about it, how it was formed, because you get to learn these things. And now I don't feel like I'm like lost when he's talking. I know the information, so it's cool.
That in the names of the cities, Danzig becomes Gdansk, Breslau becomes Wrocław, and Stettin becomes... Poland has had their modern borders for almost 80 years now, and that feels long, but when you look at history, that's just the blink of an eye. And this occupation by the Prussians, by the Russians and the Austro-Hungarians, it left its mark on the people. Not only then, but still nowadays.
Yeah.
Last October, Simon Pivcik tweeted this map thread. It's 2023, 109 years after World War I started, yet the pre-World War I imperial borders are still visible on the election map of Poland. This thread went viral. As someone who loves how history still influences the present, I had to go talk to him.
I didn't really think too much about it, but then suddenly I saw the borders of the empires from before World War One.
Simon is a Polish map nerd living in San Francisco. He has been obsessed with these borders since he found a special map.
Probably one of the first viral maps I had was a map of access to restrooms inside of someone's house.
So on this map he suddenly saw
That's
the borders.
crazy.
And it didn't stop there.
And like since then, like I've been doing more and more maps, and then on a lot of them, these borders actually show up.
We have the map of the recent election.
So what's
It's
going
quite clear
on?
that the progressive opposition won out in the western part of Poland. They also won
Yes.
out in the bigger cities, places where people are generally more progressive. The Conservative Party won more in the east. This is a rural region. And it's also a region that is doing not so well as the rest of Poland. You can find some of the poorest provinces here. But why do these maps show the former imperial borders so well?
Maybe not a lot of people realize, but many parts of Western Poland were kind of like the Wild West only 75 years ago.
A lot of this has to do with the end of the Second World War. Stalin keeps this part to the east, and Poland gained all that German land to the west.
Yes.
And now millions of people are forced from their homes, both Germans and Poles. Many Poles settle in this area, this former German lands. And these Polish people, they not only lost their houses, they also lost their traditions, their communities, but also the social control of a place where you've been living for generations. And with less social control, you can do more what you want. And this makes people, well, less traditional. Another idea is that these migrants invested more in education. The theory is that people that are forced to migrate, they invest in things that are more easy to take with you.
Oh.
And this paper shows how the focus on education in these families is still there this day. You can clearly see the difference in schooling results between those that were forced and those that weren't forced to migrate. Higher education is linked to more progressive views. Another reason why these lands are more progressive could be that they just are closer to Germany. Germany is the biggest economic power on the continent.
Yeah.
It's much easier to trade with or work in Germany if you're close. If you zoom out and take a look at the European Union as a whole, the eastern part of Poland is literally at the edge of the EU, further away from economic options. People that are more well off tend to have more liberal views. And in addition, it could also be that eastern Poland is just more rural and older, which makes people more conservative. Now,
That definitely, age definitely does make people more conservative. And so I think definitely being that close to Germany, 100% is an advantage with them being the number one economy on the continent. Helps you be a little bit more well off, being right next to them, being able to trade, and all the advantages that come with that. Also, I didn't know like them being forced out caused them to focus more on education, as the ones who weren't forced out didn't focus as much on education, and that focus on education could lead to higher paying jobs, could lead to this side being more comfortable, more well off financially. So you got a couple reasons on why it's divided so far, but we still got 5 minutes left, so still got a lot of learning to do.
these are some explanations, but reality is complex.
Okay.
And there are more differences in the past that have an effect and still influence people's lives today. To start with, it's not just on the election map that the differences are visible. People in the East and West also have different jobs.
Agriculture is pretty big in the East. Like there are still counties when like 40% of the people working in agriculture, which is almost unheard of in other developed countries.
Yeah.
But the west of Poland is more focused on industrial and service sectors. But remember that Poland was divided around 1800?
These years are kind of crucial because that's also when the Industrial Revolution started.
When Western economies started to industrialize in the 18th century, Central Europe was like, we'll stick to farming, all right? And this led to differences in, for instance, the railway network. Take this map of the railways around 1900s, and you can see the divide.
Oh,
Western
my
Poland,
days.
as part of the Prussian Empire, industrialized way more rapidly than those eastern territories under
yes.
Austro-Hungary and
That's
Russian
crazy.
control. And this amount of industrialization just doesn't change in a generation or two. But it's not just that. How people do agriculture is also different. You can see this from satellite imagery. The plots in the West are just much bigger. Farms are big companies here. They're producing for the market. But in the East,
huge.
you find a lot more smaller plots. This is a super complicated thing with many explanations. But there are two things that I want to highlight here.
Okay.
Part of the answer is that in the West, it was way more normal that the older son would get all the land. But in the East, especially in Austria-Hungary, farms could be more easily split up between the kids. So then you get all these much smaller plots. And it's also in the West where the most parts of the land were collectivized under the Soviet government. And for some reason, that really didn't go through in the East.
I never thought of that, right? Giving your lands to one son allows him to have more land, which is actually turns out better in the long run, it sounds like, than having them both split the land and both of them having smaller plots of land to be able to do things with. But yeah, while it works out better in the long run for the one son, what about the other son that didn't get no land? Things didn't really work out well for the second son. But again, the Industrial Revolution, it seems like East Poland just wasn't able to industrialize like the West of Poland. That was gobbled up by Prussia and everything. So when the Industrial Revolution hit, you saw from those rail lines, absolute insanity, the comparison of West Poland to East Poland. It's crazy.
Now to those maps that made Simon go viral for the first time. Housing. These maps show when houses are built. In general, the West has older homes built before 1945. This is probably the case because these were German lands. And apart from the cities that got, leveled, the rest of the countryside just didn't get destroyed as much in the war. But in the East, where a lot more houses were built, building bathrooms inside houses were apparently not a big priority for the communist government.
Wow.
Now, I have to say, this is not the
wild.
definitive explanation. Simon told me that it was also more normal for people to build a toilet outside of their house in these parts, because they thought it was just less unclean, which, I can imagine.
Understandable.
But if you're a Polish person and you really know why this divide is there, let us know in the comments. I actually really want to know.
I prefer my bathroom on the inside of the crib, but understandable why they would think it's less clean. It makes sense. But yeah, get it to me on the inside.
I really liked the next one.
In Polish language, there is not that many words that start with an A.
So that means there are almost no cities that start with an A. But if you look at the former Russian area, a different picture starts to emerge. Suddenly you do find them. Dots on the map that represent cities with an A. So where does this come from? It has to do with these guys. 3 Tsars called Alexander.
Okay.
So I guess in these lands, if you make a new village, just go for the Tsar. It's probably the best idea. So we have all these maps showing different ways in which Poland is divided. I do have to say that there are also a lot of markers in the modern time that show that these divisions are going away. For instance, if you look at primary school results, and because people are leaving the countrysides for the cities, the old divide makes place for a new one. A divide between city and countryside. This divide is something you see all over the world. But apart from that, I think one thing that this story shows is how much changed in the 20th century for Europe, but especially for Poland. I mean, just look at the modern map of Poland. None of their current neighboring countries even existed 30 years ago. But even though borders can change very fast, there are things that change a lot slower. Things that still have an impact on the people in the present.
Yes.
Like what kind of infrastructure is built? Do you live close to a railway station? What is the economic situation of your region? Has your family always been into farming? In the West, we like to think of ourselves as individuals with free will and the capacity to make choices that impact our lives.
Agreed.
But in so many big and small ways, we are the product of our environment.
Agreed. Completely agree with that. So he pointed out the differences between the West and the East and the reasons for those differences. I would love to hear from you guys. Do you agree or disagree, or are there more reasons that you can add upon that? I 100% believe to a certain extent you are a product of your environment. Like, your environment does help shape the person that you are. It does help shape your mindset. It shapes your perspective. So completely agree with that one. But you can break out of that box as well. So you're not stuck in it. It is possible to break out, but for the most part, most people are products of their surroundings. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed that, please don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and check out the next one. I'll see you guys next time.